Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a chapter of the Philippine Revolution that is, honestly, so cinematic, mystical, and ultimately tragic it feels like a movie. While history books often spotlight figures from Luzon, like Andres Bonifacio, the Visayas, Cebu in particular, had their own fiercely unique revolutionary hero.
So let's dive right into this incredible underdog story. Seriously, how exactly does a young, ordinary wanderer, a circus worker no less, manage to orchestrate a massive rebellion and bring the Spanish colonial empire to its knees in just a matter of days? It sounds like total fiction, right? But I promise you, every bit of this actually happened.
We're going to trace the fascinating yet deeply tragic hero's journey of a man named Pantaleon Villegas. Together, we'll watch his wild transformation from an everyday laborer into an invincible folk legend. It's a true story that weaves together brilliant battlefield tactics, indigenous magic, an impossible victory, and, spoiler alert, a completely Shakespearean betrayal.
Part 1. The Mysterious Wanderer.
Pantaleon Villegas was born on July 27, 1873, in Bacong, Negros Oriental. And look, his early life definitely not rooted in nobility or privilege. It was all about survival. He was a wanderer, crisscrossing the Visayas and picking up humble jobs to get by. A tailor's apprentice here, a baker's assistant there, even working as a houseboy for a Spanish priest. But then, his life took this massive, highly theatrical turn in the early 1890s when he packed up, moved to Manila, and literally ran away to join a traveling circus.
Now, during those circus years, Villegas wasn't just juggling or practicing acrobatics. He became deeply involved in local sorcery and esoteric talismans, which are known in Philippine folklore as anting-anting. He was said to have mastered these mystical formulas called the Santissima Trinidad. Basically, he fully immersed himself in the rich occult traditions of the region.
Now here's the thing. Physically speaking, Villegas was described as relatively short, but thanks to that circus training, he was remarkably fast and incredibly agile. Ultimately, though, his earthly stature didn't matter one bit. By the time the Philippine Revolution broke out, his supernatural reputation had completely taken on a life of its own.
Part 2. Becoming Lightning.
By the time the Katipunan, the Revolutionary Secret Society, expanded its reach to the Visayas, Villegas caught the attention of prominent leaders like Emilio Jacinto. They saw something special in him, his charisma, his undeniable leadership potential. So, in early 1888, they sent him to Cebu to organize the local forces. Almost immediately, the locals started whispering legends about him. They dubbed him Leon Kilat, which translates to Lightning Leon, and the craziest part? They genuinely believed he possessed Cabal, this magical state of total invulnerability to both bullets and blades.
Let's break down the legend versus the reality. Local folklore claimed Leon Kilat carried this magical handkerchief called a sigbin, that he rode a mystical white horse capable of leaping over rivers and jumping onto roofs, and that he could just vanish into thin air at will. But the reality? It's honestly just as impressive. This was a masterful, genius application of circus illusions, sleight of hand, top-tier acrobatics, and sheer tactical speed. He basically weaponized his circus background to become an invincible, godlike commander in the eyes of his followers.
So think about this. Whether it was actual magic, clever circus illusions, or just incredible luck, the effect was undeniably real. The absolute belief in his powers gave a hesitant, vastly underarmed group of Cebuano rebels immense psychological courage. Because of this myth, they were finally emboldened to stand up and take action against the Spanish colonial government.
Part 3. The 3 de Abril Uprising.
The revolutionaries had actually planned their revolt for Good Friday, but after realizing the Spanish were onto their plot, they had to pivot, forcing an immediate early attack. Picture this scene on April 3, 1898. A day now known as 3 de Abril. At the intersection of Columba and 3 de Abril streets in Cebu City, you have a massive, almost comical disparity in firepower. On one side, the rebels, armed mostly with bolos, machetes, some sharpened bamboo sticks, and an absolute, unshakable belief in magic. Facing them, heavily armed Spanish cazadores infantry and local loyalists with modern rifles. By all conventional military metrics, this should have been an absolute slaughter. Yet, somehow, the impossible happened. Here's how it unfolded. Step 1. Leon Kilat leads a rapid, totally unexpected flash revolt. Step 2. Driven by the sheer, unshakable belief that Lightning Leon's magic would shield them from harm, the underdog rebels fight with this relentless, terrifying ferocity. And step 3, against all odds, the heavily armed Spanish forces are actually driven back. General Adolfo Montero and his troops were forced to full-on retreat and barricade themselves entirely inside Fort San Pedro.
I mean, what a cinematic peak. Against every mathematical and military probability, sharpened bamboo and machetes had temporarily defeated Spanish rifles. For a few glorious days, Cebu City was entirely in the hands of the revolutionaries, and the flag of the Katipunan flew high over the city.
Part 4, the ultimate betrayal.
But, sadly, we've got to shift our tone here. As is so often the case in history, this blazing, triumphant victory triggered a startlingly swift and dark downfall. Just a couple of days after the April 3rd victory, a massive Spanish warship, the Don Juan de Austria, arrived on the scene. It immediately started bombarding the city with heavy artillery and landing reinforcements. Realizing they were completely, hopelessly outgunned, Kilat made the tough, tactical call to retreat to the southern hills, setting up a temporary headquarters in the town of Karkar on Good Friday, April 8th.
But Karkar? It wasn't the safe haven he thought it was. Fear spread like wildfire. The wealthy elites and local leaders of the town started doing the math, and they panicked. They were absolutely terrified that the Spanish army would burn their beautiful town to the ground in retaliation for harboring this rebel wizard. So they made a grim decision. The only way to save themselves and their properties was to offer the Spanish government a peace offering, the head of Leon Kilat.
The anatomy of this betrayal is just truly heartbreaking. He wasn't struck down on the battlefield in a blaze of glory. Instead, he was invited to a feast by local figures he deeply trusted. And the assassins? Oh, this is the worst part. They were his own men, led by his personal aide, Apolinario Alquizas. The very guys who had fought shoulder to shoulder with him turned against him in his most vulnerable state, waiting until he was deep in sleep to strike.
And the sheer, brutal irony here is exactly how they carried it out. His assassins genuinely, wholeheartedly believed in his cabal, his magical invulnerability to blades and bullets. Because they were so afraid of his magic, they chose an incredibly intimate, horrific method. They overwhelmed him in his bed, smothered him with a pillow, and literally beat him to death with the butts of their guns and iron bars. Think about that. Their absolute belief in his magical invulnerability is the exact thing that dictated the horrific brutality of his murder.
But you know what the most heartbreaking detail of all is? Pantaleon Villegas, the man who shook an empire, the mystical Lightning Leon. He was only 24 years old when he was murdered.
Now, while this betrayal definitely crippled the Cebuano uprising in the short term, it absolutely did not kill the revolution. His sacrifice sparked this enduring, unstoppable momentum. Other leaders like Arcadio Maxilum and Juan Climaco stepped up, picked up the mantle that Kilat left behind, and they actually succeeded in forcing the Spanish out of Cebu later that very same year. So today, the legacy of Leon Kilat lives on. He's remembered not just as a brilliant military tactician who achieved the impossible, but as a genuine, mythic folk hero. He perfectly represents that fascinating intersection in Philippine history where the desperate, fiery desire for national independence blended completely and seamlessly with deep-seated indigenous occult traditions. I'll leave you with this final thought as we wrap up today's explainer. When the dust finally settled on that Good Friday in 1898, did Lightning Leon's magic finally fail him? Or did his myth simply become too large, outgrowing his brief mortal life, to become a legend that still inspires us today? Thank you so much for exploring this incredible piece of history with me. Keep asking questions, keep digging into the facts, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.